Hey everyone, welcome back to another video on all things Canadian immigration. Today we're talking about something that hits the sweet spot for a lot of you, and that's the best small cities in Canada that offer safety, job opportunities, and even pathways to permanent residence. The reason we wanted to dig into this is because, let's be honest, settling in big cities like Toronto or Vancouver isn't always sustainable. It's not just the high cost of living, though that is a big one, but these cities are also competitive when it comes to immigration. LMIA support can be harder to find, and express entry cutoffs, as some of you may know, are sky high lately. With that, more and more people are asking, are there better options elsewhere? And beyond jobs and immigration, there's also the question of safety. So, where can you actually feel secure, afford rent, and still build toward your future in Canada? Well, that's exactly what we're unpacking today. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the safest small cities in Canada, the cities where LMIA access is still possible because of lower unemployment, and finally, the overlap or the places that offer both safety and job-based immigration options. So for this first part, when we talk about safe cities, we're using Statistics Canada's Crime Severity Index, or CSI for short. What's interesting about this is that this index doesn't just track how often crime happens, but it also weighs how serious those crimes are. So a lower CSI score means not only are there fewer incidents, but the ones that do happen tend to be less severe, like fewer break-ins or violent offenses. Now, let's move on to what we mean by small cities. I know it's easy to assume that small means remote or rural, or somewhere cut off from opportunity. But that's not what we're talking about here. For this list, we're using census metropolitan areas, or CMAs, which are pretty much urban regions with at least 100,000 people and 50,000 or more in the core city. So they're not rural at all. They're actually mid-sized, well-connected cities with access to healthcare, transit, jobs, and more, just not as intense or expensive as somewhere like Toronto or Vancouver. All right, let's get into the actual cities that stood out this year based on the most recent Crime Severity Index data. Here are some of the safest small cities in Canada for 2025. In Quebec, we've got Sherbrooke, Saguenay, Quebec City, and those two other names that I might butcher to pronounce. In Ontario, we have Guelph, Greater Sudbury, Thunder Bay. Over in British Columbia, there's Victoria and Kelowna. In Alberta, there's Red Deer, Lethbridge, Saskatchewan, Regina, and Saskatoon. And in Manitoba, there's Winnipeg. So as you can see, there's a strong mix across multiple provinces. And the key takeaway here is that these communities tend to experience lower levels of serious crime, which makes them a solid consideration if safety is high on your priority list. But of course, safety is just one part of the equation. This brings us to our next big factor, which is jobs. Now, some of you might be wondering, if a city is small, doesn't that mean fewer job opportunities? That's a totally fair question, and it's one we hear often. But the surprising reality is some of these smaller cities actually have stronger local labor markets, especially when you look at unemployment rates. And that matters because Service Canada ties LMIA eligibility to local unemployment. So, as of 2024, if a region's unemployment rate is below 6%, employers there are still allowed to apply for low-wage LMIA work permits, meaning there's a better chance that they can support foreign workers like you. Now let's go through the list of CMAs where unemployment is currently below 6%. So in Quebec, there's the five that I mentioned previously. In Ontario, the same. BC, Kelowna, Victoria. Alberta, Red Deer, Lethbridge. Saskatchewan, Regina, Saskatoon. And for Manitoba, there's Winnipeg. So now that we've gone over the safest small cities and then looked at the ones where LMIA-based hiring is still possible, you've probably noticed something. A lot of the same cities are showing up on both lists. And that's simply because there's a big overlap between the two. So let's go ahead and cross-reference both lists to see which cities actually check both boxes. Here's that sweet spot list again, and I'll give you guys a couple seconds to go over it. Let's say you're not eligible for an LMIA. Well, that's totally okay because there are other pathways you can consider too. In fact, if you're open to relocating or already living in a smaller or regional community, you might want to look into community-driven immigration programs that offer real opportunities for PR. Let me walk you through two of the most popular ones, which are the Rural Community Immigration Pilot and the Francophone Community Immigration Pilot. Let's start off with the RCIP. So this program is designed to help smaller communities attract and retain newcomers. There are currently 14 participating communities across Canada, and basically, if you get a job offer from a designated employer in one of these regions, it could open up a pathway to PR, with the option to apply for a temporary work permit while your PR application is being processed. So if you're someone who's open to putting down your roots in a smaller, tight-knit community, RCIP could be a really promising route. Then there's the Francophone Community Immigration Pilot. So this one's perfect for you if you've been learning French, but you don't yet meet the higher language requirements for express entry. So the FCIP is part of Canada's broader effort to support Francophone minority communities outside Quebec. It's designed specifically for French-speaking or bilingual candidates who want to live and work in smaller or rural communities where French culture exists, but need support to grow. You will need a minimum CLB5 in all 4 abilities on an approved French language test, and there are currently 6 participating communities as seen on your screen. Anyway, for more information about these programs, I'll definitely drop helpful links in the description box below so that you can take a closer look. To wrap things up, whether your priority is safety, job opportunities, or just finding a clear path to permanent residence, smaller cities across Canada might actually offer more than you expect. You've got cities with lower crime rates, regions where employers can still support LMIA-based work permits, and community-focused immigration programs like the RCIP and the FCIP. So I hope this video helps show that if you're open to looking beyond the big cities, there are real opportunities to build a more secure, affordable, and sustainable life here in Canada. And now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever thought about moving to a smaller city in Canada, or are you already living in one? If so, what's your experience been like? Was it easy to find work? And finally, for some of you that may have gone through the immigration process from a smaller city, feel free to also share how that went by commenting below. And by the way, if you found any of these valuable, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter by visiting the link as seen on your screen. Here, we always share tips like immigration updates and other opportunities before they hit our socials, so you're always one step ahead. So again, make sure to check out the description box below for all the relevant links. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.